What's crack-a-lackin', everybody? Brent Allen here, and in today's video, I wanted to take an opportunity to share with y'all the Ozark Hybrid Jigging Rod. Now, if you guys have been following the channel at all, you've probably seen me using this jigging rod dang near religiously in the past 8 months or so. And, you know, there's not a lot of guys that use this rod, so I wanted to just take the opportunity to share with you guys my experience, my feedback, and my honest review of it, since I've actually had an opportunity to really put it through the paces, especially this last spec season, which is, you know, technically still going on, but we're nearing the end of it. But I did want to share with you guys in more detail my experience with the Ozark Hybrid. And if y'all are into this kind of thing, into using jigging rods, I highly recommend you stick through the video. Now, I just want to preface this review by saying that I am in no way sponsored by Ozark. They didn't send me this rod for free. I purchased this rod with my own money out of sheer curiosity because, you know, I see guys like Hayden Jeffries using Ozark, and honestly, a lot of other big-name crappie fishermen. But a lot of these guys don't fish the way that I fish. I mean, if you guys follow the channel, you know that I'm 9 times out of 10 fishing real dense vegetation, heavy cover, pulling fish out of real thick stuff. So, you know, I need a rod that has enough backbone to it to yank them out of that heavy cover. And typically my go-to has been ACC crappie sticks, which I still absolutely use their rods. I love their rods. Great company, and I have no qualm with ACC. So, you know, this isn't a hating video on any other rod. I just wanted to share more insight into the Ozark Hybrid, just because, again, there's not a lot of guys using this rod. And while I'm kind of on the topic of ACC, I'm gonna compare it weight-wise with the ACC rear seater, just so you guys can see the weight difference. Let's go ahead and dive into this thing. Okay guys, so this is the Ozark Hybrid rear seat. Now, when you look at the rear seat of this thing, when you look at it, it almost looks like it would be a mid seat. But they do classify this as a rear seat, and I agree with that classification because while there is a little bit of a cork butt on this thing, it sits pretty far back enough that it doesn't feel like a mid-seat jigging rod. And, you know, when I first saw this, and even my dad said the same thing, he's like, I don't really know about that with that butt on there. But let me tell you what, having this butt on here, it adds a whole nother balance to this jigging rod that you just don't really get with any other rod, in my experience. You know, you can go with a mid-seat ACC or B&M, and, you know, there's that added balance to it. But with this Ozark Hybrid, it's like, you know, you see how much is left at the end of the rod here. And the weight of this butt, I don't know how to explain it. You just kind of have to feel it in your hand when you're jigging, but it just adds like the perfect balance, especially when you're using the Bano 1 reels. This is the Bano 1. This is what you guys see me use primarily on all my jigging rods. This is just a inexpensive, lightweight reel. Technically, it's a reel, because you can reel it. I mean, you see the handle on there. But honestly, the primary purpose of these things are to hold line. And when you need more, you pull more out. So you're really not reeling in like you would with a normal spinning rod or a bait caster. So that thing paired with this rod, it just, again, I can't really explain it because you have to just feel it, but it adds a perfect balance with this extra little bit of weight at the end. So as far as seating this thing with a reel, you know, nothing special. It's just like every other jigging rod basically, but you're just lining it up, get that thing on there, and then you screw in the nut to tighten it up. And there you have it. So when you look at this compared to the ACC rear seat, I mean, these things are much different beasts. I mean, that ACC, I mean, it is true rear seat Whereas this Ozark Hybrid, it's rear seat, but it almost looks like a mid seat. But I'm telling you, and again, I love the ACC rear seat, but there's just something about the balance of this Ozark Hybrid. I can't explain it, but it is such a comfortable jigging rod to use all day long. I never get jigging fatigue with this. And if I do, it's because I've been jigging for freaking 10 hours straight, and it doesn't matter what rod you use, you're gonna get it. And I have to say, I just get better stamina jigging with this rod. You know, maybe that's just personal preference or personal experience, but I'm just telling you how it is. But as you can tell, this is actually wood right here. And I think maybe this is why, as lightweight as this rod feels, it's actually not much lighter than the ACC. If you look at the weight differences on their website between Ozark and ACC, the ACC actually advertises 4.6 on the weight, whereas this is 4.7. But if I drop it on a scale, which I'll show you guys here in a second, I actually get 4.9 on this, 4.8, 4.9 on the Ozark Hybrid, and I get 5 on the ACC. So maybe my scale's a little bit off, you know, whatever. And another thing I really like about this rod is the color. You know, it's a black rod, and I like these little red accents in it, you know, and then the labeling on the rod itself is real nice. And, you know, I like the ACCs too. Green's not my favorite color, personally. That's just a thing of mine. Is it going to keep me from using ACC crappie sticks? Absolutely not. The rods are fantastic, and they've never let me down. It's just color preference. But, you know, if I had to pick between the two, I prefer black and red. But the eyes on this thing are full stainless steel. So, and this goes all the way up to the tip. And the tip of this rod is a stainless steel tip. So this isn't fiberglass, this is full stainless steel tip right here. And yeah, this is a two-piece rod. So this is the second half right here. So as most 10-foot jigging rods, all of them are pretty much two-piece, unless you got some weird cane pole or something like that. And supposedly these are supposed to be better for braid. I can't speak to that because I do not use braid personally. I'm a mono guy. But my dad does use braid, and he is going to be getting one of these rods here soon, and I'm sure he'll slap braid on it. So I'll kind of get his feedback as he uses it moving forward with braid. But as far as monofilament goes, I've just not had a problem, nor should I, you know. Now, as far as the action on this thing, I believe they say it's a medium fast, which feels about right. I mean, the bounce to this when you're jigging, it's not as kind of stout feeling as the ACC 10-foot, which is kind of why I like it. You know, I think it adds a little bit of a little extra fun when you really rip into those crappie and bluegill and stuff and you yank them out. It's it adds a little extra punch, and I like that. I don't know how well that tip jiggle can be seen on the camera here, but it's got some fast action to it, 100%. They do also come in 11, 12, and 13 foot with this model here specifically. And they all are going to have the cork handle, that's this back part, as well as the front handle here. And you can see how it kind of bows in, comes up, goes back down. I like that. I think that kind of adds to the unique feel of it. You know, when I'm holding this thing, I'm typically half on the reel and half off. But if I'm fishing a little bit closer to the boat, I'm full on front. You know, that style I think is going to vary from person to person, especially, you know, where you're fishing and how you're fishing. But that's just kind of how I go back and forth. Now, another thing worth noting here, you know, depending on how you store your rods, you may hang them up, and that's probably the ideal way to do it. My setup here at home, I don't have that privilege of hanging them up, especially, you know, the 10 and 11 foot rods I got. But so what I normally do is I'll lay them on the ground, and then I'll lay the tips facing up, so the tips aren't getting scratched or nothing like that. But with the ACC crappie sticks, with that reel being all the way to the back, it's the reel that's actually laying on the ground primarily. But with this, when I lay it on the ground, this extra little butt here keeps that reel off of the ground. So, you know, it's just kind of a little added bonus, I guess, of depending on how you store your rods. But it's just something I like. All right, so I got my digital scale here. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay this rod on here. So this is just the back end of the rod, and we're already at 4.3 ounces. And then if we add the second section, we're at 4.9. So on their site, I believe it's 4.79 is how they advertise it. That may vary from scale to scale, who knows. Like I said, maybe mine's not perfect, but that's the bare rod itself. Okay, so now we're going to do the ACC rear seat. This is the special grip with the fancy colored foam handle here. Let me find where it's balanced at so it's not leaning off of the scale. So the butt end, we're at 4 ounces, right on the, nope, 3.94 ounces basically. And then if we add the tip, just the tip. All right, that looks good. So 4.8. And yep. So yeah, this is actually a little bit different from the first time I weighed it. So right now, the ACC is actually the lighter of the two compared to the first time I weighed it. And I find that pretty interesting because, you know, when you hold these two rods together, for whatever reason, maybe it's the way this rod is balanced, but this rod feels lighter than that ACC. So all I can say is that if you're into trying different kind of rods, and if you don't feel like you're 100% happy with the one that you're using, I highly recommend this Ozark Hybrid. You know, I think it's $89.99 for the 10-foot, which, you know, it's a little pricey. ACCs, I believe, are pretty much in the same price range for the 10-foot. But, you know, this is such a great feeling rod, and it's unique in my opinion. And so I'm also going to share with you guys some clips of me pulling in some fish using this rod. I'm sure if you guys have followed the channel, you've seen a lot of these clips before, but for the sake of this review, I want to sprinkle in some of those so you can see the action of this thing pulling in slabs. Nope, nope, nope. Get out of there. You tried to run.
Got him?
Yep. Nice fish too. Whoa, ho, ho. Slammy McGee, look at you. Nice chonky male. Yeah.
Slam Sammy.
Oh man, inhaled.
There.
Got you that time, didn't I, Hoss? Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah. That's what you want.
That's table fare right there.
Yeah, buddy. That's the real.
You know, wrapping this thing up, would I recommend it? 110%. I think this is a fantastic rod, and it's held up great with heavy cover, and I've not had any issues with, you know, with line getting frayed in it, anything like that. And if it weren't for the balance of this rod, I'd probably not really think anything else of it. I would just be like, okay, that's another 10-foot jigging rod, you know, let me just go grab my ACC again. But now this thing, it's got such a unique feel to it. It's hard to portray over video. It's one of those things where you just have to grab one, you know, put it in your hand, catch some fish with it, and I feel like you'll notice a distinct difference compared to a lot of different rods. So yes, I'd 100% recommend this thing. And if you guys have any questions regarding the Ozark Hybrid, just drop a comment, let me know. I'm happy to share any insight I can that I have not covered in this video, but I did try to include just about everything I wanted to talk about. Get you guys out there, get you an Ozark Hybrid, and let me know if you do scoop one up. Let me know in the comments how you like it, and happy fishing. I do not think you'll be disappointed. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.